And welcome to Intellicide, the Falcon Winter Soldier episode 2.
Yeah, post Palm Sunday edition.
Post Palm Sunday. That's good. I like that. So, so I've been seeing a lot, of course, on the internet since Friday, since the episode broke. It's obviously a huge episode. Spoiler alert, by the way. Of course, this will be in the links. Make sure you like and subscribe. So yeah, what was your initial thoughts when you watched it?
I like the episode. It's probably my favorite one so far. I mean, I know we've only had 2, but I like this one a lot better.
What was your favorite reveal?
I like the part where they met Isaiah.
Yeah.
That was really, to me, it did homage to the comics.
Mm-hmm.
It did homage to the fact that in this country, during that time, Black soldiers and fighters in our military were not treated the same.
Oh yeah.
I really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
I also liked the part where, and it wasn't that big, but the interaction with Bucky and Sam, and they did, from the commercials and everything, they had this such an antagonistic relationship or whatever. But when they sat down with the counselor, and him just opening up his feelings and everything, and I really thought that was good.
I personally really like the way that the writers are getting really deep with both racism and mental health issues. I mean, they kind of are covering both. Like, Sam is obviously the face of the racism issues that are happening, like in his inability to get. I mean, it's kind of veteran and racism, but it's all like very much centered on race and how much of that is intertwined. Right. But he couldn't get his inability to get a bank loan, even though the guy, his celebrity, I thought it was really interesting. So Bucky has kind of been like the study in mental health, right? Because he's like the trauma victim. At the same time, what I thought was interesting, they brought in Isaiah, and he's like both.
Right.
Because he actually had like he's like literally like the center of both of those issues.
Oh yeah.
Yes, he suffered like horrible trauma because of race. I mean, it was really the book that his character comes from was really interesting, because it's like in the original stories, like it was they literally said explicitly in the book, like, America's not ready for a Black Captain America,
right?
Kind of the subtext to the show.
Right. Yeah. And what I liked also, the part after they left Isaiah's house, and you could tell that it wasn't that good of a neighborhood.
Right.
And the police roll up on them. They're arguing in the middle of the street. Police roll up on them, and they're about to accost Sam.
They immediately assume Sam's an aggressor.
Right.
Like, is this man bothering you? Like,
right. And then, when they realize he's somewhat of a celebrity, or whatever.
Yeah.
And that gets him off.
Right.
And to me, it's a very true aspect of society that, hey, if you're an unrecognizable Black man and something like that, it doesn't even have to be that serious. Like, hey, you are the criminal, you are, the aggressor or whatever else. You're not defending yourself, you're not standing up for yourself. And now we have to treat you as we might have to, arrest or whatever you.
Well, it was one of those things too that even I think when I was watching it with my son, he marked how weird it was that just the way the police acted in that scene, like the fact that they're just standing in the street talking and the police like turn on their sirens and pull up like that. Like, what was that about? I'm like, that's called over policing. Yeah, that's a thing.
Right. Yeah. Again, I thought it was true to life.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. I mean,
it was so. Did you notice you caught like obviously the kid that was with Isaiah was credited as being Eli Bradley.
Yeah, listen, you know how I feel, And
so they've set up pretty much all the characters now. You've got Eli, you've got the two kids from Wanda, you've got Hawkeye, what's her name, Kate Bishop, and then you've got Ant-Man's daughter, Cassie. Yep.
Yeah.
I mean,
so they got to set up. But you know, the thing that I don't like, because if you ever read the Young Avengers, after the what was it, the Children's Crisis or whatever it was, where they actually were rescuing the Scarlet Witch, the Children's Crusade, I think it was. So you don't see Patriot anymore. He basically retired. So that and you know, they introduced America Chavez, Miss America, and everything. So I didn't have a problem with them introducing her, but my thing is that Eli was, you know, he was one of the only minorities on the group. He was a key figure, key trouble figure, a lot of history that you could incorporate into, you know, this continued narrative, and they phased them out. And so I got a lot more thoughts on that or whatever, but I hope that they do include him. I really do. I think it would be good storytelling, and it's one of those things where I think that they can have long-term narratives, long-term series, especially with Kamala Khan coming on.
Yeah.
Right. You know, I look forward to a potential, you know, ongoing series. But again, from what I'm hearing, everything is just like these are just one shots, and the cinematic, the movies are the things that they're concentrating on.
Yeah. Well, I think that it's interesting that they seem to be planning ahead for the movies. They seem to be planning out like what they're going to be doing for the phase after this phase. Right. Because it's like they've got like this particular phase with although what's interesting is that they had an overarching story with the previous phases that linked them, right, with the whole Thanos Infinity War storyline that came to a conclusion. I mean, that was the first three phases, 3 acts of a story. Now that they're into the next phase, they need to find a next overarching story, like what's going to be the next grand villain in that.
Okay, yeah, and you know, I don't want to get too far away from the Falcon and Winter Soldier, but
this is part of the next phase, right? So Falcon and Winter Soldier is kind of starting to set this up.
You can write backwards. They have a ultimate goal that they want to get to. You've basically written the end of the narrative or the story, and all you have to do is work backwards from there and map it out. To me, if you want to have these series tie into the movies, I think that you could do it just like in the comics, where you can have your own adventures in your series.
Oh yeah.
So you don't have to. They don't all have to be world-ending, universe-ending narratives. You put them in regular situations. Spider-Man, every issue didn't deal with these villains that were so large that I need people to come in and help me deal with them. A lot of that was, I don't want Aunt May to find out that I'm Spider-Man.
Well, I mean, that's kind of, you know, what happened in the previous phases is that they had the main antagonist in the current movie, but then they had like the hints that were dropped about Thanos or the Infinity Stones or and in this one, I'm just curious to see as it's unfolding, like what is the subtext, the hints that they're dropping about what because I think they planned this out. I think they have an overarching story that's going to be revealed over time, and they're probably dropping hints right now. My personal theory at the moment, and I have I mean, it's totally based on very little at the moment because we don't have a lot to go on, is that it'll be like Dr. Doom, that there is another country and a powerful magic user at work somewhere.
Yeah, and I mean they could. I think when you are only working towards that big villain in that big movie, that you are leaving a lot on the table that just like what we've seen in 2 episodes of the Falcon Winter Soldier, and we've enjoyed it, that you can do that every, year with 8 episodes, 10 episodes of character development that wouldn't interfere with the overarching. It doesn't have, like I said, it doesn't have to be all world shattering, earth bending villains that we reach or whatever, especially if you're dealing with what we call a series, because like you said before, what Marvel is doing is trying to redefine what we see as a TV series. And that's what I somewhat have a problem with, because you are not really, to me, giving me that year. It'd be like if every issue of Spider-Man was like a 5-6 issue limited series, and you don't necessarily continue the next month after the limited series is out. You say, well, we're going to wait till this movie comes out, check in Captain America and his limited series, and after that, then we have the whatever limited series until you get to the movie. That to me is where you leave me in the wind waiting for Spider-Man or whatever my character is until the next event comes out.
Right. I mean, they kind of do that in comics. They started doing that in the last, couple of decades, obviously. I'm showing my age, but they started doing the thing where, they do stories in comics now in like six issue arcs, so that they then release it as a graphic novel afterwards, as a collection, so as a volume.
But that to me, that's different, because again, you're still dealing with that one character in that series, and then the next.
No, but that's what I'm saying, is that like it's the same kind of thing. I in my opinion, I see the same kind of evolution happening in TV, where instead of broadcast TV led to series that just ended up being like continually broadcast, right? And so it was just a continuous thing that kept going, like you said, like a long running series. Where there maybe wasn't really an overarching plot to the whole thing. It was just kind of a bunch of mini plots. Like, I mean, it's very much like life in that way. But in this way, when I'm seeing the evolution with like Netflix and streaming services, is that it's becoming more chunked up, right? Like fragmented, like because it's being consumed digitally, and because you get things now. And it's interesting seeing the different streaming services. Like Netflix is releasing things on this, like the whole season at once, right? So you get used to this thing where you can just like binge watch the whole season at once, and it actually changes people's viewing habits. And then you see them, like when they come out with something like The Mandalorian or WandaVision and Falcon Winter Soldier, where it's like one episode a week, people start getting pissed now, because they're like, what? I got to wait a whole week for another episode? What's up with this? It's like, yeah, believe it or not, that's how television all used to be,
Right. But I don't lump Netflix in with what Marvel's doing, because Netflix has released multiple seasons of shows. Now you can have an argument with, okay, they will cancel a lot of these shows after maybe 3 or 4 seasons, but still they are releasing X amount of episodes dealing with that character. Next season, they're dealing with what happened in the first season and that fallout. And so that to me is a lot different than what Marvel is doing. Like, again, I think that they can do it if they chose to. If they said that, right, we're going to deal with these issues in this container and not mention the movies. I mean, maybe you throw a hint in there, but you could release another episode or series of or season of Falcon and Winter Soldier without delving into the plot of whatever next movie they're going to be in. That's just me.
I mean, you're not wrong. It is kind of a, I'm not sure I like it either. I'm just, saying that that's what I see happening, because you're right. It seems like almost like television is ending up like what I see Disney doing is like they're coming out with shows and they're great shows. Like I'm really enjoying Falcon Winter Soldier, but it does feel like it serves the movies in a way. Like what's happening here is just kind of a, a mini, it's like a side quest to the main quest in a way.
Okay, so you brought up comics and what they do now, and you mentioned how they'll do a 6-issue thing where they can release in what's it called, like a trade or
Yep.
whatever.
Yeah. Yep.
To me, and this is my opinion of it. So when Secret Wars, that's the first one that I can remember Marvel came out
right
with their limited series that was it touched a lot of characters. It 12 issues.
Yep.
It was huge.
Yep.
Well, they and it was at the time it was incredible because they hadn't done anything to that extent. I mean, Contest of Champions.
They had crossovers before, but they were very limited before that. Yeah.
Right. It didn't have the impact that Secret Wars did. Well, what I've observed is like after that, it was like every year it was one big event after another.
Yeah.
And we had this discussion before where
it ends up serving the big event.
Never had a chance in the comics to catch your breath, like, okay, I don't want to read every issue of my comic leading up to this big event where it's a crossover with, I got to buy 2 or 3 issues of X-Men. Okay, right. Now that I read that one, now I got to read 2 or 3 issues.
Terrible. And it's one of the things that makes it that I personally, it is a pet peeve of mine too, because it's like they could have like a really good story going. And all of a sudden, like 2 issues of it have to be about some event that's going on.
Right.
That has nothing to do with the character or what was going on before that. And it just throws the whole thing off. I hate it.
Well, and that's to me.
It happens in Spider-Man all the time.
With these Marvel series, is to me, I look at it like that, where I just want to concentrate on the character development that I've seen right now. We got 4 more episodes, and then we might not see these 2 characters for a year and a half. And that's crazy to me.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. It's funny. I would love to see them like continue it. I would love to see them be able to do something like that. But I do wonder, like, would they be able to maintain like the like they'd either have to do it in a container where it's got nothing to do with any of the movies or anything like that, like you said, or they'd have to very carefully work with all the other writers to like, make sure that it didn't, cross wires of what they had intended. I don't know what that, because right now, honestly, Marvel is kind of, I have no idea what's going on with Marvel. I watched WandaVision. I'm watching Falcon Winter Soldier. This is like a totally different action story that's setting up like the power broker and the post-blip chaos in the world, right? That's setting up that there's terrorism and chaos. That leaves a vacuum for the power broker, or perhaps someone like, which is another thing I find interesting, is that in the background of all this too is apparently they're going to do Black Panther 2. And so in this world, they're going to have T'Challa's dead somehow T'Challa dies. And so there's a power vacuum there too. What will be interesting is to see how they end up folding in their other properties. If that's even a part of the plan in this phase, because they supposedly came up with this before they closed that deal. So is it even part of it? Like, will we even see mutants? I mean, supposedly we'll see mutants, but Fantastic Four?
I think we will see all of them. And I'm going to, because what they've done is create this universe and these characters, and it's meshed together so well. DC was never able to do that with their cinematic universe. So I give them a lot of credit for that. I just think that what they've done is now, like you said, they've catered the television shows to the movies. And that's why, to me, I would much rather than you get characters that have nothing to do with the movies in, and you create a reoccurring series with them. I'd be like all in.
Like the DC, like the Arrowverse or something.
Oh yeah, right. Listen, I give them a lot of credit. Now, it's been a lot of their shows that I haven't liked the way that they've developed, but I still give them credit because, like you said, they had writers on multiple shows that they had to coordinate their efforts to do this big crossover event every year for 5-6 years that they did that.
Yeah.
And they did it so well.
A question for you. Did you watch the Zack Snyder cut?
Yes, I did.
Okay, we'll have to do a separate show about that. Right. But it is one of those things where I would like to see a series that's like an Arrowverse type thing on Disney Plus, like in the like maybe like it doesn't even have to be necessarily in the MCU. Like it could just be about like other heroes in the MCU, but just like separate from the MCU.
Right, right. Well, I said it before. They have such a wealth of characters or whatever. Yeah. I mean, listen, man, you can get a character that no one outside of comics has ever heard of. You can develop a series, and
actually, that's a really interesting point. All the genres they have capable, like they could do Western with Jonah Hex.
Yes.
They could do
well, that's DC. Series. That's DC.
Oh, that's Jonah DC. Hex. You're right. I'm sorry, Jonah Hex. You're right. That is DC. So no, but they could do like World War II with like the Howling Commandos.
Right.
They could do. I guess they could do the Western if they wanted with like the Ghost Rider.
Right. Well, right. They there was a Ghost Rider before the Johnny Blaze one.
Yeah.
They could do that. They could do Devil Dinosaur.
These are. Yeah.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. You can do this, and it wouldn't have to have anything to do with the cinematic universe.
Right.
And someone could tune in every season for 10 episodes or whatever, and just enjoy that simply for what it is. A Marvel property might have some mutant ability, might not. Just like you said, Kazar. Hey, I'd watch that.
Yeah. I'm honestly, it just depends on how well it's written. Right. Those characters, I would.
Well, I think with what they've shown and demonstrated up to this point, that I would trust that they would do a good job.
Yeah. So obviously they're bringing Baron Zemo.
Yeah.
In. You think we'll see the Thunderbolts?
I hope we do. I really do. I mean, you can have them have their abilities given to them by the power broker.
That's an interesting thing too, that they brought the power broker in. I was hoping they were going to do that.
Well, right.
So here's a question: Does John Walker have powers?
No, and I don't know what they're going to do in the series, but from what I know, he didn't originally have powers, and I like the fact that they went up against these individuals that had taken a super soldier serum, and they got their butts handed to them.
Well, so in the comics, John Walker was originally a super villain called the Super Patriot, who had gotten his powers from the power broker.
Okay.
And then when Captain America stepped down, the U.S. government gave the mantle of Captain America to him.
Right. And then Captain America, Steve Rogers, became the captain.
Well, didn't he become Nomad first?
Well, I think that was prior to this.
Okay.
Period.
Yeah, honestly, I get all this. Yeah.
Steve Rogers had given up the Captain America title before, but I think that was before the John Walker period.
Okay.
So once John Walker became Captain America, he became the captain, and he had a black uniform on, black with red stripes.
Yep.
And then once I forget what exactly happened, Steve Rogers became Captain America again. Then John Walker became the captain. Then changed into the U.S. agent, and that's when he was on the West Coast Avengers.
That's right.
And that's when he had his mental break and became more violent. And I think that they've alluded to that somewhat in this series.
Right.
This one episode.
So I do think, like what you were just alluding to a minute ago, I do think that I see that happening, regardless of what happened in the comics. What I think I see happening in the show is that, he was given the mantle. He's really good with the shield, but I think ultimately, if he's not already a super soldier, that's going to be the main problem for him, is that he's running up against a world full of super soldiers now. Right. So probably, in my opinion, he'll end up being offered powers by the power broker and end up taking them.
Well, right. I can see that. I can also
And
see.
then, like you said, mental breakdown, and then Sam and Bucky have to take him down.
Well, dude, listen. The interview on Good Morning America that he had.
Yeah.
It would be a lot of pressure for anyone to take over a mental like that.
Yeah.
You had somebody who lived up to the ideology that we put forth in this country, and now he has to do that. But and I don't want to say it's forced or whatever, but hey, I can't be him. I'm not him.
Right.
But people are looking at you to be him, and that's where I think he's going to have a break.
So I thought it was a really interesting distinction, is that Captain America was really anti-establishment. Steve Rogers, one of the first things he does, so he wanted to join the army to help during the war effort, right? And so he starts out doing the USO tours in order to supposedly help the war effort. But he very quickly gets bored of that and disobeys orders in order to go actually help the war effort and rescue prisoners. He's anti-establishment. He went against the government. He was against the government in the Civil War for like the Sokovian Accords, or the, whatever they call it in comic books.
Yeah.
Superhero registration.
Yeah.
But it's like his whole thing was he was a vein of, he was patriotic, but he was also anti-establishment. And so this guy I thought was interesting. There was a line in the episode where they're like, well, how did you track us? And he says, oh, well, your stuff is government property. And, he points at himself and he goes, I'm the government.
Right.
Like he sees himself as the government, as an agent of the government, whereas Steve saw himself as being kind of anti-establishment. Which
but I won't say that Captain America Steve Rogers' Captain America wasn't anti-establishment. He was more America, and necessarily the ideas of America don't line up all the time with the ideology of the government and the execution of the government. So I think that's where a lot of,
Well, but I guess what I'm saying is that Steve, a lot of people I think identified with Steve, and he became more of an icon because he was willing to go against.
Right, he'll go against authority
when it went into his beliefs.
Right, he'll go up against authority if it doesn't, like you said, if it goes against what he believes is the right thing to do. He's not just going to follow orders like that.
So that was something I actually thought was really interesting too in the episode, that I thought was really good writing, but it also showed like a lot of emotional intelligence on Bucky's part. After they went and visited Isaiah, and he's explaining to Sam, like Sam's like, why didn't you tell me? And he's like, why didn't you tell Steve? And he made the line I thought was really good, is that he knew if he told Steve about Isaiah, Steve would have stopped at nothing to get him a pardon and an apology, and like he like stormed Congress about it, like
exactly.
But so, and he knew that the trauma that Isaiah had already been through, Isaiah just wanted to be left alone. And so that line where he said like he'd already been through enough, like he knew enough about trauma to know at that point that Isaiah just wanted to be left alone.
Well, think about it. So Steve Rogers, during that last movie, Endgame, they beat Thanos, and he goes back, takes the gems back to where they needed to be, and then he lives his life in idyllic tranquility with his first love.
Right.
And so he's had that same amount of time that Isaiah would have had, where he's living the dream. And this man is going through the civil rights movement, or whatever. He's going through, discrimination.
Yeah.
And he's this powerful individual, but that doesn't matter because you're a black man at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, and it's a contrast that I'm happy that they showed us.
Yeah. And me too. It'll be, I mean, like you said, it's funny because it's like they have more material than they have resources to make shows for it. But like that would be a hell of a show.
Well,
like, his story. I mean, they would kind of have to be a mini series, but
Bruh, hold on. See, now you say that they had more resources. This is the Disney Corporation that, I'm sorry, all those movies have made billions for the most part.
Yeah.
I mean, Ant-Man and the Wasp is probably one of the lower performers, and that still made over, I think, $500 billion.
Oh, it probably made more too, because now they just got everybody to go back and watch it after they came out with WandaVision.
Right, but so you know, they have the capability. It's just, do they have the
well? I guess the other thing too, Disney is a master with limiting availability in order to drive up demand, right? They do that whole thing where they put their movies in the vault and they limit the amount of stuff available. That's why like they're only coming out with like one new show a week for the whole year.
Well,
where they could come out with tons of content, but they're just not.
They could. Again, I just am of the opinion, because, and this is not really on topic, but I don't necessarily like where television is going. I have a Hulu account, I have a Netflix account, I have a Disney Plus account. I don't have an Apple Plus account, but where now I have to pay for, if I want to see everything that I want to see, an Amazon Prime. So if I want to see all of these shows, I have to pay for them individually. And now you got NBC with Paramount or Peacock, whatever, or Paramount is CBS.
Well, they've got the Paramount, now CBS All Access became Paramount Plus, and NBC just came out with the Peacock.
You're right. But that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't want to do that. Now, it's almost like where with cable television back in the day when, I got HBO, Cinemax, Showtime, Stars,
even more a la carte now.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. So your cable bill could have been like 300 plus. Well, I'm not paying 300 plus now, but I got to pay for internet. Then I got to pay for all these separate, subscriptions. I just don't like that.
I know, I hear it. Well, it's kind of a, it's got its pros and cons. Like, if you do it the right way, I kind of manage it by like, I wait for the whole season to come out, and then I'll sign up for like 1 month or even just the free 7 days or whatever, watch the show I want to watch, and then cancel it. I mean, it's not ideal for sure, but I don't know. I mean, at the same time, I had cable, and it's funny because I was of the opinion that Xfinity had really perfected cable television with their X1. And then right after they came out with that, and I had it for a few months, I'm like, this is really like cable perfected, but I'm done with cable because it's not worth the money. I got rid of it anyway. I haven't gone back. It's been years.
Who do you have now as a provider?
I don't use cable anymore. I just use like internet. I have like WoW for my cable internet, and I just stream, like you said.
Well, I had WoW before we moved here to the new house. Right now we have ATT TV.
Okay. So you still call it Uverse?
No, it's literally a set-top box, and it's almost like an app, basically. You can watch live television, but it's a cloud storage solution. So we don't have a set-top box. We only have one actual box, and what everyone else is, we have Rokus, and everyone is running the AT&T app to watch television on their televisions.
So do you have then like separate apps that run in addition to that, just that you stream?
Well, so like I said, I have an Amazon Prime account.
So it is at that point, cable just becomes another app.
Well, I literally the cable is just because we signed up for ATT TV. I mean, my wife watches a lot of local news and some shows or whatever.
Right.
So that's why we have AT&T. But it's only like $50. And
I will say this actually. So when I got rid of my cable, I went out and got a digital antenna, and I get like 60 some odd channels just with that for free.
Right. Yeah.
So I mean, that's an alternative for local news and stuff. That's usually what I do.
Yeah,
we're getting pretty far afield from Falcon Winter Soldier, though.
yeah, we are.
So I'm not even sure how long it's been here.
I think it's been at least a half hour. So.
Okay, all right. So we're gonna wrap this up real quick. So I'm gonna give it 4 out of 5 stars.
I'm gonna probably give it 4.5, man. I really enjoyed this episode. Like I said, it was a lot that we saw. It made me want to see the next episode more so than the first. I really enjoyed this one.
Cool. All right. That's it for this episode. We'll see you guys after the next. Probably we'll do another Falcon Winter Soldier, and we will probably do another. We'll have to do a Zack Snyder cut review. So
yes, sir.
All right. That's it for Intellicide.
All right. Talk to you later.